All right, guys, Kentucky head coach John Calipari is officially headed to Arkansas to be their next head coach to replace Eric Musselman, which just went to USC. So that means Kentucky's open. Let's take a quick look at a few, about 10 candidates that have currently been thrown around as potential candidates to replace Calipari at Kentucky. All right, so we'll break down this list, and at the end of the video, I'll give you my prediction on who I think they should hire and who I think they will hire. So first off, Mark Pope, BYU's head coach, has had some success at BYU. Tournament-wise, make the tournament. They just had their first year in the Big 12, had a really good year in the Big 12. Mark Pope did play at Kentucky, so he does have those ties there. Would definitely be an interesting fit. I don't know if fans would necessarily be behind this hiring, but like I say, he did play there, so he definitely wants to see this team win. Would definitely be an interesting hire. I wouldn't be against it. All right, next up, Bruce Pearl at Auburn. He is a name I've seen thrown around a lot, probably the most as of late. Bruce Pearl, all right, he's won multiple places now at Tennessee, now at Auburn. He's won in this conference too, and the SEC. So we know he can be successful as a coach in this conference. He's won a lot of games. Now, will Kentucky fans get behind Bruce Pearl? I don't know, but we'll definitely see. Next up, TJ Otzelberger, Iowa State head coach. I don't know if I see him leaving Iowa State. Seems like a pretty good fit there. Has won a lot of ball games. I think he just agreed to a contract extension as well. So I don't know if I see him leaving for Kentucky, but we know this. Kentucky is going to pony up and pay up. And they're also going to make a lot of money real quick as far as Arkansas is having to pay for John Calipari's buyout probably. And that's going to give them a lot more money, which would make them more willing to pay somebody else's buyout is kind of what I'm getting at here. Next up, Scott Drew, Baylor head coach, has won a national championship. We see his name thrown around all the time when these jobs are opening. He hasn't taken one yet, but usually where there's smoke, there is fire. So I would not be entirely surprised to see him ending up here. Next up, Rick Pitino, St. John's. All right, could he make a homecoming back to Kentucky where he has won a championship before? I don't know. Do you really want to go down that route after everything that's been going on with Pitino, how it ended at Louisville? I mean, I don't know. We know he can win. We know he can win at Kentucky. And he's definitely entertaining. All right, if he breaks out the white suit, fans are going to be all crazy. But I don't know. I mean, you're only hiring him for a short span here. He's pretty old. I don't know if you go down this route if I'm Kentucky. Next up, Brad Underwood, Illinois. All right, probably one of the best coaches at the moment that you could realistically get. As far as I don't think Illinois necessarily is forever place. He has done really good at Illinois. He's also won at other places. Think back to when he was at SFA and won at Oklahoma State for his year he was there. I think Underwood's a really good head coach. Has not gotten over the hump just yet. This is probably his best year as far as making his best run in the tournament, but definitely can do worse than Brad Underwood. Next up, an interesting name I saw, Shaka Smart at Marquette. All right, we've seen him take a big job before in Texas. Now, Kentucky's definitely a different level than Texas even. But we saw what happened when he took that job. He had really good recruits coming in, but it kind of affected his style of play. He came out and said he couldn't play his style of play. Think back to his Havoc days at VCU with that full court press. He said recruiting the 5 stars won't allow me to – they're not going to press the way that 5 stars want to play. They're not going to run my style, so I kind of had to change my style. He's not an offensive mastermind or anything. We've seen him have a lot of success at Marquette, but at Texas was a little iffy. Kentucky would be a little more like Texas, I think. You'd be recruiting higher-level guys again and probably guys that don't fit your system. So I don't know if I would go down that route, but he does win games. Next up, probably the hottest name I've seen on here, Nate Oats at Alabama. All right, just made the Final Four with Alabama. He's a really good head coach, really entertaining style of play. All right, space and pace, 3-and-layup stuff. I think this would be a really good hire if you can pull him if you're Kentucky. Nate Oats is a really good head coach, I think, and you would get better players at Kentucky than you've gotten at Alabama. I think this is definitely an interesting prospect. We'll get back to if that's the guy or not, though, at the end of the video. Next up, Tony Bennett at Virginia. All right, there have been some rumblings that he might be looking to get out of Virginia. All right, he's kind of reached his peak at Virginia. Yes, he's won a national championship, but other than the year they won the national championship, they haven't won a tournament game. They've made the tournament, but they don't ever win a tournament game. So has he reached his peak, his ceiling at Virginia? I probably think so. Now, fans would not be behind this whatsoever. I don't think anyway. I'm not a Kentucky fan, so I don't know, but I don't think they would be. Tony Bennett isn't that exciting of a style of play. You know, they're slow, defensive-minded. They're going to slow, grind the game out, win games defensively. If they score 50 and win, that's fine with them. I don't think Kentucky fans will get behind this. All right, next up, Dan Hurley. I don't think this is realistic, but I've seen his name thrown around, so we got to throw it on the list. Dan Hurley at UConn. We've seen how dominant he has been at UConn. I don't see why you leave for Kentucky if you're him. I don't think he would, so I'm just throwing this name on here because I've saw it thrown around a bunch. UConn is as good a job as Kentucky, I think. UConn has won a championship with their last 3 head coaches. They're almost like LSU of football. No matter who their head coach is, they're going to win ball games. So I don't think he's leaving UConn. All right, and last but not least here, Kenny Payne, former Louisville head coach. I'm just kidding. He's definitely not an option. We saw went down to Louisville, but he was a Kentucky assistant before. I would die I would crack up if they hired Kenny Payne in Kentucky. It's not happening. He won like 2 games at Louisville, but yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and mark Kenny Payne off this list. All right, then we'll actually get started here. All right. Okay, let's get it. All right, so let's break down this list, talk about who's realistic. First off, I want to mark off Dan Hurley. All right, again, I don't think they're hiring him. I don't think he leaves UConn, so I don't see that one being realistic. Next up, Tony Bennett at Virginia. Is a national championship winning head coach, but again, I don't think the fans would get behind this, and he's kind of lost his luster a little bit with the way basketball has transitioned as far as you almost won with the transfer portal. He's won with building up his guys previously as far as we're going to bring them in as like a 3-star recruit, turn them into a 5-star and see what they can do, and the game just kind of changed a little bit. Next one we're going to mark off, Rick Pitino. It would not be a bad hire, but I don't think they make this hire. There's too much drama going on around Rick Pitino. I don't think this happens. All right, next thing we're going to take off, TJ Otzelberger. Would definitely be a good hire as well. I just don't see him leaving Iowa State. Like I said, I think he feels like a fit there, a pretty good fit, so I don't think this happens. Next thing we're going to mark off, Scott Drew. All right, he has signed that extension, and you know, similar to Otzelberger, his name gets thrown around a lot with these jobs, but I don't see him leaving. It seems like almost a tool to raise his pay. You know what I mean? So let's get to the final 5 here. Mark Pope, Bruce Pearl, Brad Underwood, Shaka Smart, and Nate Oats. All guys I think they could realistically get if they really wanted them. The least amount, I would say Nate Oats. I don't know if they could pull him. He has a pretty good buyout, I think. But if you really want him, like I said, you can pony up the money if you're Kentucky and go get your guy. All right, next thing we're going to cross off here, Brad Underwood at Illinois. He's another one I don't know if fans would get behind. I like Brad Underwood as a head coach, but I know a lot of fans are a little skeptical on how good he is, so I don't know if they would make that hire. Next one, Shaka Smart. All right, he does have fans, okay? Like, he is really good as a good head coach at certain places, but again, we saw how he did at Texas. I think it would be a little similar to Kentucky, so I don't think he's a good fit here. All right, final 3 here. I think all these guys are realistic options here, and it's probably going to be one of these 3 guys that is hired as their head coach. Mark Pope, you've got the ties there, so it depends on if the AD wants to hire a guy that really wants to win in Kentucky. If so, Mark Pope might be your guy. The last 2 are the names I've seen probably thrown around the most. Bruce Pearl, like I said, we've seen him win in the conference. Nate Oats, we've seen him win in the conference too, but he's a little fresher. Bruce Pearl's won multiple places. Nate Oats has the bigger buyout, though. So if you could hire any of these 3, I would probably say Nate Oats. But again, I don't know if they're willing to pay that buyout or not. So let's go ahead and mark Pope off the list. No pun intended. But I think it might be a little too much of a jump for him. He's won at BYU, but not that level just yet to kind of earn consideration, I don't think, here. So it comes down to Bruce Pearl and Nate Oats. So here's what I think is going to happen. Who I would hire, Nate Oats. I would pony up the money if I'm them, but I don't know if they will. I think they're going to hire probably – I think it's going to be Nate Oats, actually. I was going to say Bruce Pearl, but I think it's going to be Nate Oats. So I would hire Nate Oats. I think they're going to hire Nate Oats as well. It just seems like a pretty good fit there as far as he's won in that conference. He's won at Alabama. Kentucky has a lot better basketball resources than Alabama. They're a basketball school, and once you get to Kentucky, you've kind of reached the peak almost as far as your college level is concerned as a coach. So I think that would be a move up, a step up for Nate Oats, if you will, and seems like a good fit. But who do you think they hire? Let me know down in the comment section. Who would you hire? Let me know down in the comment section. Are they on this list? Are there guys you would add to this list, take off this list? Let me know. Comment down below. Make sure to like this video, and most importantly, subscribe.